risk something.
Well,
so
yeah,
if you,
it's a very ballsy
yes,
move to
if you,
just go for
yeah,
it.
you have to be a bit ballsy, almost rude in that sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really knocked on. I slept in front of people's doors, and in the morning when they came to their workshop, they stumbled over me, like me living there, laying there with my sleeping bag, right?
The following video is the first of a series that I have been wanting to make for a very long time, interviewing people from all walks of life and all over the world to be able to ask them to tell their stories about what is important to them, why they enjoy doing what they're doing, and why they believe life is cool. Please enjoy.
Who knows what you're gonna ask me, but
I don't even know what I'm gonna ask you. I got some questions that I've got written down, but I don't even know if I'm gonna follow those. First off, can you just introduce yourself, kind of like who you are, your profession, and how long you've been working for the Northmen, just to introduce yourself.
all right. Well, Zoran Ullmann from Germany, blacksmith from profession, have learned it in Germany, and now also for a couple of years I do timber framing and log cabin building here in Latvia, and been working with Northman Guild now fixed for 3 years.
Okay, awesome. And like, how did you get into the path of becoming a blacksmith? Like, it's kind of a weird thing to choose for a profession.
Well, long story short, I was a nerdy kid that loved mythology and legends and history, and somehow it always intrigued me, like the aspect of the legends that was mostly played with in a when you look through all mythology, pretty much, is the metalwork is always very mystified. Is very often considered a magical craft. In many mythologies, it's considered the craft of the gods and demigods. So blacksmiths have been given the traits of demigods in the legends very often, which is kind of cool.
So just for context, like a good example of that would be like King Arthur receiving Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake.
That would be one. Or
Beowulf using the sword forged by the dwarves to cut off
that would
the
be
demon's
one.
head.
Or if you look into the Germanic mythology, you have Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, which you also find in the Nordic ones, who is a blacksmith's apprentice and goes in the forest and cuts down a dragon with it. So yeah, there are plenty, right? There's in the Greek mythology, you have Hephaestus being the blacksmith god, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Hephaestus. So yeah, and his sons kind of very often have these traits as well. Yeah, so it was pretty much that, and then also a big affinity towards the Middle Ages, and I practiced historical martial arts for a long time, been also teaching it, so it was kind of a natural path in that sense, and also always a good reason to travel the world, so it all came together pretty well.
So did you travel quite a bit, and like how does traveling and blacksmithing go together?
Well, first of all, out of tradition. So there's a very old tradition in Europe that is called a journey, or a journeyman. In German, it's called Walz. The idea is that with the build of the cathedrals, with the starting of the building of the cathedrals in Europe, they needed loads of craftsmen, very skilled craftsmen in quite high numbers at many places at once in very fast iterations. So you needed to pull together craftsmen from all around Europe or the world even. There are some historical records of even Chinese and Middle Eastern carpenters and masons coming into Europe at that time to help with these builds. Were really well paid construction sites, and if you look at timelines of some of these constructions, they're ridiculously fast, and the reason is because you throw a couple thousand people at it, but all of them are skilled. There's no one there who you have to explain, like, oh, this is how you do it. No, the people all knew what they were doing. These people are highly trained people, and that was one reason for it to travel as a craftsman, so you could earn a lot of money by going to these foreign construction sites. And another reason was that there were periods in the medieval times, several times. It happened in the 12th century, it happened 13th century. In the 14th century was a very, very big push of people moving from the countryside into the big cities.
Okay.
Because there was work, there was labor. The cities became more and more comfortable, so people wanted to live this lifestyle. And with that, there was an overload on skilled craftsmen in the cities. And so they couldn't provide work for them all, couldn't house them all. So they made up this rule where they came with the idea of like, hey, we send an apprentice that has just finished his apprenticeship. We sent them out for 3 years and 1 day to travel. He cannot go closer than 30 kilometers to his hometown. And he's expected to work with as many masters from different places as possible. The idea behind that was, okay, you get rid of workforce that is too much. And there are 3 outcomes for that person that you send out. One outcome is the world is dangerous and he doesn't make it back. A second one is the world out there is beautiful and he finds a good place to stay and finds a wife, whatever, or a better place to live and stays there. Or third option is he comes back after a while, but then he has gathered so much knowledge and experience that you gladly take him in because he is a highly valuable asset. And that was actually back then also for a long period the basis of being able to be recommended for a master title. So back then you couldn't apply for a master title. You couldn't say like, oh, I want to become a master here. I pay some money and then you give me an exam. But other masters had to actually recommend you to become a master in your craft. And then you would be tested. You would be challenged against other masters and you would need to beat them.
Wow.
And then you would get your master title. So a master title was given, not applied for. And so, and in order to even get considered for that, you would have needed to be a journeyman before. So sadly, our modern time has kind of skipped that all. So that is the tradition, and of course I liked the idea, and I was like, okay, if I go for that craft, then I should also do the right step and
so like
travel afterwards.
You've got this rich history behind being a journeyman and traveling around and working for different people, but like I feel like in today's like overly specialized, very modernistic style of working, where people are filling out jobs on online services and stuff like that, it can be hard for people to. I think most people have no. I'm going to lose the word here, but basically no context or idea of just being able to walk up to someone and say, hey, I do the same thing that you do. Will you teach me how you do it? Because I'm traveling around trying to gain more skills. How does that work? What does it look like in the nuts and bolts? You just show up on someone's front porch and say, hey.
Yes. So in today's world with fast information and everything, it is very easy to fall into the trap of like, okay, I communicate with a person over 1,000 miles away and just set a meeting up somehow, right? But we have to understand that in today's world where everything is so specialized and people don't provide for themselves anymore, but they do need to make money in order to then buy things that other people provide. People are extremely busy with just keeping the bills flowing, right?
Yeah.
So if you call someone over 2,000 miles away and be like, hey, I want to come around, I want to learn from you. In his head, he has to calculate immediately, right? He starts calculating, okay, can I afford having a guy here who doesn't bring me much money maybe? Who knows? Maybe he will be able to help me with some jobs, but I have to also spend time on him and have to teach him so that it's fair. And especially if he works for free, or for accommodation and food. So immediately a calculation starts, right? And the easy way out of this is a no, right? You say like, yeah, sorry, don't have time, don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
But I think deep within us, there's still this kind of like deep respectful person that that risks something.
Well, so it's a very ballsy move to just go for it.
Yeah, you have to be a bit ballsy, almost rude in that sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really knocked on. I slept in front of people's doors, and in the morning when they came to their workshop, they stumbled over me, like me living there, laying there with my sleeping bag, right? And yeah, and then you tell them like, hey, I traveled from freaking Timbuktu till Istanbul to see you. I know you have this skill. I want to learn from you. I want to see what you do and how you do it. And in exchange, I will help you with the works that I can help you. Because of course, you know, you don't start this journey as an unskilled person. I was a fully like graduated blacksmith at that point.
Yeah,
so
so
I know my stuff. Like
Yeah.
I know how to, like, you can give me tasks and I can make them and I can do them, right? But I went to very specific people to learn very specific things. So like usually like some very small skills that are just very detailed, and then you can manage that because that's also not their everyday thing usually, and so you can kind of help them with their everyday stuff, and then they can take some time. You pretty much try to manage it in a way that you give them so much help that they can afford them to take a couple days off to actually really teach you something, or maybe a week even, or 2 weeks. Yeah, and still, right, you keep your eyes open when they do stuff, and you observe and you learn. Yeah, so it's being ballsy.
Yeah. So how long were you kind of living this journeyman style lifestyle?
Well, like full on being constantly on tour was for the first 5 years.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
overshot that 3 years in one day a little bit.
Oh yeah, by quite a bit. Because the 3 years in one day, they passed way too fast. I couldn't even look that fast. No, but and then for 2 years I was kind of living in Rome, but also still moved a bit around from time to time. And I built up a workshop for 2 colleagues in Rome, I helped them with it. And yeah, and then I came here, and since then I'm here. But yeah, for pretty much, you could say 7 years, I was with a backpack on the road.
Wow. I think we could fill a lot more than this interview with the stories from those 7 years.
Yeah,
Stories for another time, I think.
couple weeks of
A
interview.
couple weeks worth of interviews, a couple memoirs, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of stories.
I'll be the first one to read them when you write them. So, like, we talked a little bit about being ballsy. I didn't mention this before, but the motto of my YouTube channel, and you know, McKinley and I's YouTube channel, which is the guy I run a channel with, is life is cool.
Yeah,
And like the whole point of the channel is just to show people that you can go, like, normal, average, everyday people can go out and do things that they love, and you don't have to be. I mean, obviously, you have to be a little bit insane to do it, but you
you just have to be willing to step a bit out of your comfort zone sometimes. Yeah,
So, like, one of the things that people have to deal with is like fear of doing hard things. Like and it's kind of like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Like the people are in a really bad situation. They don't like the job. They don't like where they're at in life. They don't like a lot of things. The list goes on and on and on. But they stay in that situation because they're afraid of the unknown. So
even the prospect of it being maybe better is too scary. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes people don't
because you don't know how much better or if better. Yeah. Or in what way. Yeah.
So like this is, I mean, there's no wrong answer to this question, but like there's hard things that we have to do every day in order to even try and improve or live a better life. So what helps you accomplish hard things?
Oh, it's a good question. Honestly, I think a really big asset that I have is that I somehow early in my life discovered that my own comfort means zero to me.
Okay.
I have a very big sense of comfort for other people. Like when I can feel very fast when other people feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
And it bothers me. So actually I usually try to make other people around me feel comfortable, which is also a reason why I had a really, really hard time finding people to travel with. Because at some point it also gets very exhausting if you have to, when you have a very, very big comfort zone where pretty much nothing matters to you, and you constantly have to kind of step back and think like, oh, but how does the other person react in it? How do I make it more comfortable for the other person? When you have this really big urge, it also kind of starts to hold you back at some point, which ended up always being me. at some point saying goodbye to people. So it's like, hey, like if you're not at all willing to at some point, like, also step out of your comfort zone a bit, then I'm going down here mentally at some point, right? But yeah, so when it comes to myself, I have pretty much, I have no regard for my own comfort. Like, I don't care if I'm miserable. I don't care if of course I like being clean and having showers, like who doesn't? And especially for the sake of others as well. But if I don't get it, I'm not crying about it, right? If you don't give me food for 2 days, I'm not gonna cry about it. It's like, there will be a point where I get food again. It's all right.
So you're describing like kind of the quintessential mental toughness that a lot of people talk about. Would you say that there was a point in your life where you started to develop that? Do you think it's just kind of an inborn trait, or do you think you had to practice?
I couldn't put a moment in time on it. Like, I couldn't pinpoint it, not at all. I would say it might have had to do a lot with the way my parents raised me. They were very, how would you say? They were very chilled with like, with almost anything. They would just let you try out. My parents are deeply Christian. My father used to be a pastor. My mother used to be a pastor's wife, staying at home and taking care of the kids. So there was always, like certain life principles that were held very strictly, but there was never a judgment towards the neglect of it, or also the like, hey, I want to try out something else.
Yeah.
My parents, for example, never forbid me to do drugs. They were like, yeah, try it out, go ahead, so there was always a room for like going a bit nuts without immediately getting how do you say,
Kind of sanctioned for it.
Yeah, or slapped across the jaw for it.
Yeah.
But there was also at the same time a very clear communication about possible consequences, right? So one thing was always clear, like if you do stuff or if things happen, there are always consequences to everything.
Yeah.
And some you might like and some you might not like at all. But never tarnished with judgment. So of course that was for a rebellious kid always, it kind of disarmed you as well a little bit, in the sense of, oh, I don't have to try certain things because my parents won't even be mad at me if they, like,
where's the fun in that?
Like, that's the fun. They're just gonna be like, did we fuck up here? So, yeah, and well, what does this have to do with my level of disregard of comfort? I guess is that I managed to try out a lot of stuff. I was allowed to like really explore, and also to sometimes go completely nuts on things, like completely crazy, right? And then, our holidays, that's maybe also a big reason. Our holidays never were a hotel or a holiday home.
Yeah.
Our holidays were, our vacations were going hiking in Norway for 2 weeks when I was 9 years old with 10 kilo on my backpack, walking for 14 days across a national park and swimming in cold water in order to get some sort of cleanliness, and through rain and hail and storm and sunshine, everything. Well, that toughens you up, certainly. So yeah, that kayaking tours and bike tours, that was our holidays. It was never,
It was never kick back on the beach with a drink and just enjoy the sunset.
No, never. It was always like, it was always considered nature is a much more, relaxing state to be in than laying somewhere on a sun bench.
Interesting.
But yeah, that also, of course, I guess, kind of at least teaches you that not every discomfort is negative, but sometimes discomforts can be also very, very healing in that sense, because you realize, like, hey, There are just certain things you cannot change. You cannot manipulate. If the weather changes, the weather changes. Like you have two choices. You cry about it, or you just keep walking.
Yeah.
And enjoy how beautiful the views are. And how great it is that you're so tired already that you can't feel your legs anymore. So you just keep walking. Awesome, right? Like you can stop when you don't feel your legs anymore. That's what most people probably do. It's just like, oh, my legs hurt, and now I almost don't feel them anymore. I'm tired. I want to go home. Or you can get into the side mindset like, awesome, my legs hurt a half an hour ago. Now I don't feel them anymore. I can keep going. Great. So because we still have 5 or 6 kilometers to walk today, or 10, so that probably was also part of it, but I can't really put a pin on it. Like, it's difficult to be like, this is what.
This was the moment.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Even though we could keep this going for the rest of the night, I need to get some sleep at some point because my cough isn't getting any better.
Mine neither.
But last question, and this is just for funsies, and this is kind of your time to just rant and cook as much as you want. All right.
Good at ranting.
Hey, that's perfect for an interview, man. If you can go, it makes my job so much easier. All right. So the question is, do you think life is cool? And if so, why? And what in your life led you to believe that life is cool? And if you don't believe life is cool, why not?
Yeah. Okay. Well, life is certainly freaking cool. If you grab the opportunities by its sleeve, and that every time. Why do I believe this? Well, first of all, there are theories what happens before and what happens after life. And some people like to escape it, I guess, with drug excesses or with, just getting old as fast as possible and then leaving this place. Some people try to escape it by just diving so deep into the worries of the daily that they like, oh, I have to have these responsibilities and I have to run through them, and just in order to escape this possibility there could be more. I think that when it comes to living life is that we have to understand that the strongest spiritual now the word got killed in my brain.
Take your time.
Experience, simple word. The strongest spiritual experience in your life that you can have is the moment you live in right now, because that's where your spirit, your soul is the most present. Right? Every other spiritual life that you seek, that you try to artificially announce or whatever, is just an escapism. And I'm not talking about like believing in higher powers or whatever. I do. I'm speaking of like getting into ecstasy or whatever, like, dancing yourself into delirium is like being present, like completely undiluted, and living the moment. I think is the strongest spiritual experience you can have, because that's all you are, right? It's life as a spiritual experience, because you actually don't know if in the end, who knows where our soul really lies. It's something that is difficult to explain, and some things feel more connected and sometimes you feel more disconnected, and use every moment of that experience, because we don't know. And even all these different philosophical theories and religious theories of maybe there's an afterlife, or maybe there's reincarnation, right? Which is, for example, a concept that is present in actually absolutely every religion, even though, for example, we Christians like to kind of sometimes push that aside and forget about it. But reincarnation is a Christian, fundamental Christian concept. It's just not being taught because it's not seen as important, and that's probably why it's so interesting in the Christian beliefs, because it focuses more on the like, hey, live your life that you live right now to the highest potential. Don't waste it. Doesn't matter if there's another coming. Like, live it now. Why would you You know, why would you push it to the next if you can experience it now?
Yeah.
And I believe that as well. I'm like, I think that it doesn't matter what happens after. There's a very beautiful sentence that impressed me very early on in my life when I read all these different mythologies. There's Homer's Iliad,
Yeah.
and there's a very cool quote from Achilles. He says, "The gods are jealous of us for our mortality, because we can live every moment of our life as if it's our last." Right? If you're immortal, then what does it count? Like I can live tomorrow, right? It doesn't matter. Today I can be miserable, but we don't have that luxury, right? Every miserable day is a wasted day, in that sense. So yeah, that's why I think life is awesome, and you can just go crazy. And it's not about how long you live; it's about how intensely you live. I think, and
that's that intensity comes from accepting basically everything that comes to your life.
yeah, and just being happy to make choices, not lingering on maybes. But like, hey, this path opens up. Do I take it or not? And I'm not saying always take it.
Yeah.
No, make a choice, right? Because by not choosing a path, you choose a path, and that's fine, right? Like you choose the other one, and that's great. But like, push it on. Like, give it always full. Don't linger in maybes. I think maybe is, for example, also one of the worst words ever. Like, do you want to meet up tomorrow? Maybe. Yeah, you just wasted both of our times. Like, say yes or no.
Yeah, because maybe 90% of the time means no.
Yeah, right? So, for example, there's also a rule of mine by now. If someone says maybe, I just take it as a no. I'm like, don't waste my time. Like, I have better things to do. You know, if you don't want, then I spend the time with someone else. That's okay. But don't rob me of that other moment as well with a maybe.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Fantastic. Well, that's all I got for you.
Cool.
That was
you very much.
fantastic. No, thank you. There's a lot of very, very good stuff in it.
Well, cool questions.
I've always been fascinated by psychology, and mostly just what makes, not necessarily like what makes people financially successful or any that stuff's
doesn't matter
boring.
anyway.
That stuff's boring. Like, if you work hard and keep your nose clean, you'll be able to
Yeah, and
make a reasonable.
if you aren't successful financially, then someone else will. And if you live your life in the fullest, then maybe that other person at some point is willing to share in on that part if you lack on this. But you for that can join in or help out with the other part, right? That is not the finances. So I think it's not important.
I've just always been fascinated by like what makes people tick. Like, because I think in today's day and age, like we're so caught up in ourselves that we never really concentrate on like, oh well, but like we're caught up the world. Like, I saw a quote the other day that really I liked a lot. It's like the world teaches us to always look selfishly inward without ever looking inside.
Yeah.
Like, because we're so paranoid about what he's doing, she's doing.
It's always physical needs.
Yeah, it's like I'm not as cool as him or her, and I, and you just carry on this selfish need all the way down online, but you never actually get to know yourself. You never get to know your insecure. You might know your insecurities, but you never actually face up to them.
Yeah, and also it's like if we build these really secure lives, right? As people say, like, oh, I need to pay my pension funds, so that I have a pension when I'm old. I'm like, okay, how do you know you ever arrive there, right?
Yeah.
Like, show me that security there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a big illusion, right? And I know too many people that never reach that. You know? They lived always this very secure life, how we call it. And then is really the big question, how do you define life, right? Is it security in this, like, oh, I have these material needs that need to be met and I make sure I can have them until I die? Is that what living means? Or does living mean like seeing what comes at you and, hey, if you have to sometimes work a bit harder than fair, but at least you kind of get to see some moments, right? And not just stuck in this loop, in this hamster wheel where you just constantly worry about the next thing. And a very beautiful analogy is probably like you put so much work in building a ship, right?
Yeah.
And then you leave it in the harbor and it rots away. That's
Yeah.
what most people do. They build up this huge ship. They have a family. They have house. They have, they have all the securities. They are shareholders in companies. They are, everything is insured. Everything they possess is insured. But then they still they insure their Porsche and still are scared to go onto the racetrack with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, hey, you build a ship strong so that you can sail into the eye of the storm with it.
Yeah.
Because that's the fucking fun of having a ship. It's not the calm sea, it's the freaking storm, and you're terrified for your life. Mm-hmm. But you know that your ship is built good, right? That's what a ship is for. It's not for, and that's what life is for. That's why people can train or can be taught to be mental strong. It's to go out there and have difficult situations,
mm-hmm.
right? Which stories do we tell?
Hero stories.
Very simple. The story where everything goes fucking wrong, right? Like, people come out of holiday when you ask them. If everything went well, they said, yeah, it was a nice holiday, it was a beautiful place, everything went well.
Yeah.
If shit hit the fan, they start suddenly talking.
There's a great story behind it.
I always say, I was always glad when something went completely sideways on my trips. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, cool, I have a story to tell. Where most people are like, oh, fucking hell. I'm like, yes, now it gets interesting.
Now it gets
right?
good.
So,
now we get into the plot.
Like, on my trips, I almost died a few times, right? And it's like, that's awesome. They're great stories, right?
I love it because I can hear through the recording, like, people watching this video at some point going like, oh my gosh, but you almost died. Like, how?
It's like, and? So, a very fun little fact, by the way. Before I went on this road trip, I had a talk with my parents.
Yeah.
And they sat me down. They were like, okay, we have to talk. Like, let's see, like, just so we all on the same page. We know you want to do this. We're not holding you back. Opposite, we support you. Like, full on. Do that trip. We couldn't do it. We grew up in Soviet Union, Germany. Borders were closed.
Yeah.
For us, there was no way. My father stood in tears when I left. He wanted to grab his backpack and just come with me. He was like, I want to fucking travel. So I have it from him, right?
Yeah.
Seeing the horizon, chasing it. And they were like, we do know you're a bit nuts. So we cannot hold you back from going into regions where, the foreign ministry of Germany says, like, don't fucking go there as a tourist, right? Or as a traveler. Like, it's dangerous. They will slaughter you on the streets, whatever.
Yeah.
We know you're gonna go. When you read that, you probably just go in there, right? You run in first. We know we can't hold you back from it. So we just want you to know, don't ever, like, worry about us. Like, we know this is the life you want to live, and that's good. Live it, because it's not our life, it's yours. And we do know that you could freaking die on that journey. But for us, it's more important that you enjoy the time that you have than being worried about, like, oh, what would my parents think? Can I really take that risk now? If I die, then my parents gonna be sad or whatever. They're like, yeah, we will be sad, but we also will be really happy that you kind of, just went for it. I don't know if probably not many people have such awesome parents.
No, I'm sitting here thinking about what my mom would say. I was like, no, that's never gonna happen. But no, I would say that there's probably a very high chance that actually helped a ton on your journey of of like not having that dogma of just hanging over your shoulder of like, I want to do this thing and I have confidence in myself that I can do this thing, but because of somebody else's opinion, even if it is someone as beloved as your parents, I'm not going to do that thing.
Yeah. No, it's really important. And I think that's something that people have to, maybe if they don't get it from, their family or whatever, if they don't get that message, it's something worth considering for everyone themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I really own people? I don't say be selfish, right?
Yeah.
If you have true responsibility, if you have kids yourself, like, freaking don't throw your life away. Like, once you put kids in the world, like, there is a different type of responsibility. But maybe, consider to teach them to also be to be willing to take risks and to enjoy taking risks, because it doesn't matter, especially when we, deviate back to the question of success. If you read true success stories,
Yeah.
they were always deeply connected and founded in taking a big fucking risk. They never were like, oh, I played it safe.
Yeah.
No,
Interesting.
not one. The ones that we call success stories because they, inherited a couple billions from their parents, that's not a success story.
No.
That's being nurtured to be lazy cunt, right? Sorry, I hope you can put this on your channel like this. But
I'll put some beeps in.
But no, like true success stories where people really went far and beyond. They are always connected with taking big risks, and very often risk for your own life. And sometimes, and these are the very, very tough decisions to make, right? It's not just risk for your own lives, but maybe also risk for the life of your team around you, or whatever. And having the trust of the people around you to be like, okay, if this person does this, makes that decision, we're willing to go through because we know he considers things. Like he doesn't just, this of course is part of risk taking as well,
Yeah.
right? You shouldn't just stand on a cliff and we can go back here to your field of belief, or our shared is like, don't stand on a cliff and jump down the cliff and say, here, if you want me alive, then save me, Lord. Right? Like, don't be stupid, right? Don't be reckless, but like consider the outcomes, but then also truly evaluate the true value between possible risks and possible wins for taking that risk, for allowing that risk. Do an assessment, and I promise everyone, you get faster and better at it. You take seemingly more and more risky decisions, way more calculated. Like the level of what actually risk is going up.
Would you say that's just because you become more confident in yourself? Because
Yes,
like
you do.
I remember like me as a young, younger than I am right now. I'm not going to say that. Back when I was young, I'm freaking 22. But anyways, as we both have, as we have a common cough attack. No, I just noticed I would motorcycle a lot. I would dirt bike in the backcountry, and I never had any friends that would go with me, so it was always solo. And when I first started off, I was very cautious, always staying by home, never going too far out in the backcountry. And after a couple of years of doing that, being smart and being safe, the meaning of those words really changed a lot. It changed into, okay, I'm looking at this hill that I want to climb, and I'm looking at where I would probably fall down and break my leg. And I'm thinking about
overview.
And I'm thinking about, okay, could I call my parents? Could they get somebody in here if I did break my leg? And then that was how I wasn't afraid of any monsters in the attic at that point. I was afraid of real life dangers, and I could calculate that against my own skill.
Yes.
At that time.
Yes.
I think that's kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, of course, you get better at like evaluating these things, and sometimes you will notice that you take the same decisions, you take the same risks, but with different assessments behind them. Right? Why you take them, or why it's worth taking them, or what the possible outcomes are. And it's worth it. It's just getting comfortable with it, because in the end we are actually just ignorant.
Okay,
we are trained ignorant.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
Very simple, right? If you, let's say, okay, very simple. You go to your best mate and you say, hey, tomorrow we grab our backpacks and we leave everything we own behind, and we just grab what we really need for living on the street, and we go hitchhiking.
Okay. Bet.
Tomorrow. We're not taking a penny with us. We just see what happens, right? What would most people say?
Wait. Whoa.
They would flip you the bird and would be like, are you absolutely and utterly mad? We don't know what kind of people we meet. We have no money to support ourselves. We maybe, we get robbed, we get whatever, right?
Yeah.
So most reason for this is the trust in others, right? There's no like, oh, I meet so many strangers and I actually I'm completely surrendering myself to them,
Yeah.
right? So I have no control over the situation, seemingly, right? Even though they forget, like, hey, you have a gut feeling, you have abilities to read people, like you don't approach people where you have a bad feeling about. You approach the ones where you have the sense of like, hey, they seem to be decent people, right?
Yeah.
And but on the other hand, every person thinks that when they step out of the road every morning, get in their car and drive to work, that they're completely safe.
That's true.
Even though most deaths happen through traffic accidents, because you're trusting blindly every other traffic member, right?
Yeah.
Participants, that they're gonna drive safely, and it's proven statistically that they certainly don't.
No, they don't.
So
They never do.
you take huge risks of your life and your family's life, and family's well-being every day when you drive to work that you think are completely safe.
Yeah.
We're ignorant. We're completely oblivious.
Just because we've put ourselves in that comfort zone, or because society's put us in that
Well,
comfort
I
zone?
think because we somehow managed, our brain somehow managed to program itself and see the craziness of that as absolute and utter normality. And that's just conditioning, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be programmed by society in that sense. It's just what you are exposed of from small on. What is standard, what's normal. It's normal to get in your car and drive to work every morning. It's normal to cross the road, right? Even though you don't know if there's a psychopath in that next car that just wants to run you over,
Yeah.
right? You don't even consider this. That's the funny thing. There's goes zero consideration. But then when you try to get someone to put himself into a risk zone that he is actually, where he has the chance to actually consider things, to evaluate situations, because he is not yet just completely accustomed to it, right?
Yeah.
Or conditioned to believing that it's okay, people freak out,
Yeah.
right? Even though statistically going hitchhiking is one of the safest forms of traveling,
Interesting.
because it almost never something happens.
Because I mean, like for me, like who's trying to
Yeah.
live a fairly adventurous lifestyle, hearing that is like my mind immediately goes, really, it's a safe form of travel, but
Well, it's as safe as driving with your own car. In the end, you step in someone else's car and hope that he is driving well,
yeah.
or that the other people around him driving well and don't build an accident.
Yeah.
What is the difference between putting yourself into his car and hoping that he drives safe, or all the others around, or getting self in your car and hoping that you're not too tired, that you don't miss another car, that you don't see in your back mirror or side mirror, or hoping that others around you drive safe. It's the exact same thing. And statistically, that you get into a psychopath's car, right, is the
Yeah.
same as if you wait on the bus stop and statistically you might meet a psychopath there.
Yeah,
Right?
that's fair.
It's statistically all the same.
But I think it swings right back around to kind of what I was talking about at the very beginning of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yes.
Right? Interesting.
So it's a very, very funny thing, and it's you can decide to hunker down and just stay in that bubble, and then and then in the end of your life, I mean, how many people I've met, that were like, fuck, you hitchhike and someone opens the door for you, it stops with a car, opens the door, it's like, hop in, and then they tell you, well, I've seen you, and somehow something kicked in, some instinct. I needed to get to know you, and the reason is because that life that you live right now is something I had never the courage to, because I was stupid and I never took risks. I just played along. And they want to become part of a story, right? Finally, a story that they didn't manage to write themselves. So it's, I think this regret is a way bigger risk in life than, I don't know, breaking a leg from time to time. Like, come on.
I think it is statistically proven that humans, when they speak of regret, talk a lot more about the things that they did not do rather than the things they did.
So do the things. Just don't kill someone actively, but do crazy shit. But also don't be stupid. Like, don't do things just because everyone else says that they're cool to do. Do the things that you really have like an affinity towards, where you feel like, hey, I really want to try this. So I'm saying it as stupid as this, try drugs, but don't come crying to people when they hurt you.
Oh gosh.
live with the consequences also of your own actions. I think learning that is also important. Like, hey, you fucked up. But don't be shy to also ask for help to get dug out again, even if you do stupid things, because that's also part. Everyone at some point needs the help, and believing that you don't or that it's embarrassing is also very naive. Thinking that you can dig yourself out of everything is very often impossible, and also it's like, it's not terrible, like, because the person next to you that just helped you now, tomorrow might come and be like, fuck, now I need your help, mate. Like, I drove my car too deep into the mud. That's part of human experience. We are not individual hunters. We're pack animals.
Yeah.
And we cannot, like, no human can survive on themselves. So making stupid things and getting help from others is very normal.
Yeah.
But just also be open to offer your help when someone else needs it, I think. Because that's, again, a cool story for them to help, for them to tell, or for you to tell. It's have human interactions, I think. And don't be scared of other humans. They will show their face early enough. And if not, then, well, it was your time. But, but you can't control it anyway.
That's true.
It doesn't matter. Like, you stay home in your safe place and a cup falls out of your shelf, hits your head, and over. Like, statistically, most, like, as a German comedian, he made that joke. Like, if you want to live long, never go to the doctor. Because in 80% of all of all death cases, a doctor is present.
A doctor is present when you
die.
So
if you want to live long, don't, But
that's really funny,
that's
actually.
the funny thing, because these are true statistics, and it's like, but we just ignore them, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't say don't go to the doctor, but it just shows the irony, the almost schizophrenic nature of it all.
Yeah.
We do the things that very clearly, people drink every Friday party, and so many people die through alcohol or through the consequences of alcohol abuse, not through alcohol themselves, but whatever happens after.
Yeah.
But still, everyone does. So many people die of smoking. Still smoke.
Yeah.
So, but then when you say something else risky, where the statistics are way lower, then they suddenly know statistics and come with them and believe them and consider them. But for the things that they have chosen to do, for some whatever reason, then they don't. They almost like put them under the rug,
Yeah,
like, we don't want to hear it.
Those are inconvenient truths. We don't want to talk about
because
those.
I fit right into that pattern. And I don't want to hear about it, that I fit in that pattern, because it's me, as you said before, right?
Yeah.
I'm different. I can, I'm...
Are
you? Is any of us?
It's interesting. Like, I was talking to a guy the other day, and we were discussing, like, why people have bad habits, self-destructive habits.
And we all have bad habits.
Everybody has bad. Everybody does. Everybody does. And the only reason that we would continue to do a bad habit is because it gives us short-term gain, like short-term pleasure, whatever you want. You drink alcohol, you feel better. You smoke, you get.
For me, it's sugar. I constantly eat stuff.
I think everybody's got that problem. But what it comes down to is the percentage of humans who can honestly and more importantly, like, consciously decide to, like, forego immediate pleasure or immediate personal gain for long-term fulfillment is super, super low.
Yeah.
Because nobody who's smoking doesn't know that it's probably going to give them lung cancer. But they can gaslight themselves into saying, I'm the 1% that's not going to get lung cancer.
Yeah, or I can stop at any moment.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
When in reality, they're just saying, hey, when I smoke, I get a nicotine buzz, and it makes me feel good, and it helps me get through my day, and I already don't have very much fulfillment in my life, so I'm just going to keep this habit around. Whereas people who are addiction-free, or even just more bad habit free than others. I'm not going to. I don't know.
Completely.
I don't know anyone. I've never met anyone that's completely free from
this Buddha. I want to get to know.
seriously. But those people are kind of societally
and
seen.
Just sitting like this all day is kind of also a bad habit.
No, it's a bad habit.
Right?
Man. You gotta get out, go see some stuff.
Yeah.
But they're normally in society they're kind of seen as the outliers. They're seen as weird but in reality they're the ones that we look up to when the story time comes around.
Yes.
You know? The people that...
Yeah, but that's why this magic also is starting to disappear, right? Like, we used to.
Sorry, we're getting eaten by mosquitoes.
Yeah. No. We get this when you look into the old world a little bit. Like you see these nomads, right? These wanderers. We're talking about Marco Polo and these figures, right? Where they come into a town, you have in the Nordic mythology, you have these wanderers that are described, and they're almost like, they're very often interpreted as like gods in disguise that visit, right? Because they tell stories from distant places, from older times that no one ever has heard of, right? Places beyond the borders of knowledge of that village, right?
Yeah.
And so they're almost seen as these like ethereal or magic figures that just come to visit to teach a lesson, and then when the lesson has been shared, they move on, right? To bring that lesson to the next place. And that's where our very fast information flow today is almost a bit sad, because we completely lose the connection to that. And I'm not saying I want to be seen as someone like this, and I think no traveler wanted ever, but it shows a little bit what value was put onto certain things, right?
Yeah.
Back then it was a novelty. It was something that was, hey, there's someone who goes beyond what comfort means for most people. They put themselves into situations where they then can collect knowledge and stories from all around the place, all around the globe, and then they are willing to share these, right? They put themselves at risk in order to collect these stories, and they were respected for it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they took opportunities that others didn't take.
Yeah.
Today, if you have that, if you are one of those, you looked upon almost as like, well, there's almost like a, how you say, an intrusion of that field, in the sense of everyone who goes into holiday today somewhere, into a resort in Ibiza, right?
Yeah.
Wants to be part of this magical entity of the storyteller, right? So as soon you start a story, there comes this, oh, I've been there too. There's never this, oh, let's see what this person approaches things differently. Maybe here's a moment to just observe.
Interesting. So
there's this, immediately everyone wants to be part of everything that seems to be cool. Yeah. Right? There's a cool album by one of my favorite musicians, Devin Townsend, and he called it The Casualties of Cool.
The Casualties of Cool. That's
so
cool.
People become a casualty of being cool, trying to be cool.
Trying to fit in with
society.
Trying to
fit in. So every trend that comes in, they need to jump on it, but they could totally forget to maybe follow the things that they themselves really want to do. I mean, no story more interesting to listen to than a person who like really did what they wanted to do.
Yeah, even if you're not interested in what that person
No,
did, the
doesn't
story
matter.
is still fascinating.
Like, I'm not interested in so many things, right? But then you meet people that, like, I actually noticed it's not really true. You are actually interested in all these different things, but what you're interested in is not the artificial and not the surface level of these things. It's like, I have no clue of math or physics. Like, I can hold my conversation with physicists in the sense of like, okay, I know the terminology and I kind of abstractly understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? I understand the like optical description of phenomena, but what I don't understand is as soon you write like one equation down, it can be just 3 fucking symbols long. I have, like, for me, that's, I don't understand how you can put that into practical. I have no clue what that actually even means. For me, this is highly cryptic. I would describe them as magicians.
Yeah.
For me, they're wizards.
Yeah.
They write formulas down and they create freaking a collider, hadron collider in Switzerland, right? Out of freaking paperwork. I don't know. Like, for me, this is like
magical stuff
that borders on dark magic, right? Like,
which is really funny to hear coming from a blacksmith who, for 80% of the population would be considered a black magic artist
for thousands of years.
Yeah,
right?
Because they couldn't figure out how you did it.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out how can this guy manipulate fire? How can he manipulate one of the hardest elements ever? And he just plays with it, right?
Yeah.
He makes it look like it's freaking, I don't know, clay, patty. But that these borders get pushed, right? And so I think really what really comes down to, does someone really live what they really want to do, and do they dig into it? Do they really follow that?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter what it is. You start to listen. Like, I couldn't give a fuck less about football or whatever. But if someone comes, I don't give a fuck about many things, right? But if someone then really like comes to me and like starts to really tell like here, this is what I experienced, and this is why things are the things they are in this field and whatever, I'm like, okay, tell me more.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I suck it up like a sponge, right? It's like, I want to, this is cool. Like, there's much more complexity to it than I would have ever thought, because I'm a simple and ignorant person. For me, soccer is freaking soccer. Like, take a ball and try to get it into that goal. But, well, there's all sorts of tactics behind it, whatever, and it's highly complex why there are things the way they are. Why this year this team wins and the other one this year, even though it's the same teams, and and people are like, oh, the trainer changed, and then I couldn't, normally I couldn't care less. But if someone is like really can like explain the nitty gritty of it, every topic becomes interesting.
Yeah.
And so instead of becoming the casualty of cool, of trying to like, oh, here's a new trend, I hop on this, see it on TikTok, one person makes a dance and suddenly
everybody jumps
it's
on.
like, why don't you invent your own dance?
No, everybody just wants to consume, nobody wants to create.
Yes, it's like, and with traveling, it's sadly the same. Like, people, they want to see the Torres del Paine in Patagonia, right?
Yeah.
So what do? We build a big road into it so that every casual walker, everyone who just figured out that they can walk up to these mountains. Where it's like, man, like, leave it to the people that can tell these stories. Like, leave it to the people that are willing to put themselves through it to get there. Why, like, I'm not a pilot, right?
Yeah.
I would love to fly a plane, but I'm not, it's not.
Yeah.
I haven't put myself on that path, and probably never will. It's very unlikely.
Yeah.
But I have no urge to take one flight lesson, take photos, and be like, hey, I've been flying a plane today, right? You can do these things where you can book like these stunt planes, these extras, right?
Yeah.
And they get you up in the air, and then you can, use the joystick, right? For a couple seconds or minutes, and then people are like, oh, you see, I flew this time. I'm a pilot. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Right? Or I really, really want to do skydiving. I want to do the wingsuit along the mountains, fucking proximity flight along the cliffside. Well, I never gotten so far. I haven't gotten to dig into that, right? And
Yeah.
I would never. People were like, "Oh, maybe you should just take one of those tandem skydives, right? Like one time you pay like a couple $100 and then you can jump off a plane and strap to another person, you know, and then you get some photos and video how you jump out with this guy and then you were skydiving." I'm like, no, I wasn't skydiving.
Yeah, because
I just following a trend.
yeah.
But I don't actually to get a story. I don't get to tell a story.
Because kind of what I'm gathering from what you're saying here is just like there's so much surface level in the surface level attraction, surface level following or experience that we have in the world today. You're saying dig deeper.
Yeah,
like you respect the people that dig deeper.
Like, and whatever it is, playing the violin, like nothing more impressive than someone who puts every day 2, 3 hours, 4 hours of practice down and just becomes good at something.
Oh yeah,
right. Like, it's a bit sad. No one is willing today anymore to like really grind something, to go through some pain, to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Right. You want to skydive? Take freaking lesson, make hundreds of jumps, like, and then film yourself making like insane jumps, right?
Yeah.
Jumping off freaking, I don't know, in the Jessamite park there, jump off the cliffs or whatever, right? Like, but grind it.
Yeah.
Like, have the fun of grinding it. Don't just pay someone to have a one-time experience. Like, I would feel so shitty. Like I would feel so shit because I'm someone who smells blood very fast, right?
Yeah.
If I do something awesome one time, I'm like, I want to do this again. Like, that's why I can't. That's why I have real trouble settling down, right?
Yeah.
I was as a nomad around the world.
You could just chase whatever you wanted.
I could do whatever I wanted. I really licked the blood. I was like, so, and now I'm building this workshop, which is awesome. It's my dream workshop, and I always want to do it. So I dig in, right? I'm here for 3 years now already, and just really, I don't go traveling because I know once I grab my backpack, I'm off.
Yeah.
Right? But also I know if I now go and I have this unfinished project, it's gonna bother me for the rest, the entire time.
Because that becomes again something you didn't do, like those regrets that we were talking about.
I didn't grind it,
Yeah.
right? I just left when it became uncomfortable. That's stupid. Don't leave when it becomes uncomfortable. You can drop it. I allow people to drop it when it becomes comfortable again.
I think that's a really, really, really good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Don't quit when it becomes uncomfortable. You have just started.
Yeah.
You still fucking suck. And you don't, and it's not worth telling the story about it because you still suck. Like tell the story when it became comfortable again and you went through the shit for it. And we're like, hey, but this is now where I arrived. And now I can share it. Now I can lead other people through it. Right?
Yeah.
Can help other people grinding through this because now I can tell them like, hey, it becomes easier at some point, becomes better again. You're not the voice in their head like, yeah, I also stopped it because it sucks. You're holding other people back. Like, just push it. Like, do it proper. And sometimes just focus on something. Be also happy to drop something, right? I did music for many years. I was a frontman in different bands, and I played some guitar. Was never really good at it. That's why I was mostly vocalist. But I dropped it because I knew I had to, grind something else.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do 5 things at once. Right, so
That's something I struggle with.
It's so easy to do 5 things mediocre. But the funny thing is, the more things you do well, because you ground them, like you went through the grind, the easier every new topic becomes. For me right now, I'm in this very lucky position, very fortunate in the sense of like craft has become for me a little bit like this. I trained as a blacksmith. I really ground. I mean, I traveled the world for it, right? Really took the grind. And then now switching, then I started doing leather work because I make swords and I need to make scabbards for swords and handles. And I wanted to make more than just simple pieces. I wanted to have embossed leather work and whatever, right? So Well, I had to learn doing that. And the funny thing is, my hand-eye coordination, my fine motoric was already very trained, right?
Yeah.
I know how to draw because you have to as a blacksmith. So doing these kind of embossing work and figuring out how leather works became already much easier, right? And then, for example, I came now here to Northman Guild, and like I'm not, this is also one thing that I would, like I said before, master titles back then were appointed, not
Yeah.
applied for. I would say stay a student for as long as you can, and I certainly still try to run with that. But I'm at a pretty decent level in carpentry, in comparably quite a short time compared to if I would have started
With carpentry.
with carpentry from zero. But because I have already other crafts experience in my, it becomes easier. And instrumentalists will tell you the same story, right? If you master one instrument, for example, one string instrument, suddenly, like, it doesn't matter if you play guitar, you can play bass very quickly. You can probably play the sitar and the mandolin, and you just get a feel for it very quickly. And then at some point, if you're really good, you might even switch to violin really quickly. Usually, that's why you have these multi-instrumentalists, what you call, right? They record a whole album for themselves because it's always the same patterns that you can follow, and skills transfer into other realms, right? That's why also in the extreme sport field, most extreme sport athletes, they do multiple different disciplines, right? They're mountain biker, but in the next video you see them jumping off the mountain bike and then pulling the, and they skydive down. The next video they go on a high line over a huge cliff.
I've always been really sad for the super expensive bike they just ditched, but
yeah,
that's
exactly.
just me.
And in the next video they make backflips with motorbikes, and you're like, how the fuck, right? But or they suddenly are in a half pipe with a skateboard. But yeah, it all makes sense. It's like it's this motoric. It's this like feel of how your body works and what you can put your body through, and and it translates into other things.
Yeah.
So, but today people always want to do everything at once, and they never become good at something really, and then they get frustrated. Oh, I can't, because they realize it subconsciously at some point. I'm not good at anything. So many people, if you listen to people today, so many people will tell you that. They're like,
I always used that. Always
really
used
good at anything.
It always used to piss me off when people would say I can't sing.
Yeah.
Because like I worked as a singer. I was a professional singer for a little while, and I taught myself how to sing.
Yeah.
Like maybe I have a good voice. Like maybe I was born with a good voice. Maybe I wasn't, but I had to teach myself how to sing.
Affinity to it, but
But like people, it really pisses me off sometimes when people will just exclude an entire option from themselves.
But they haven't even.
Yeah, they've never tried it. They said, "Oh yeah, well, I for some reason I wasn't."
Once in the shower, and
I sang once when I was 12, and someone told me I was off key, so I decided I can't sing.
Yeah, it's very typical. So instead of trying to always try everything that's right now trendy, like everyone has an idea. If people truly would listen to themselves, they would have an idea what they really want to do.
Yeah.
And they really want to become good at. If they would shut off the voices around them of like, you can't make money with that, or that's not a career to follow, or blah, 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 it's bullshit.
Yeah.
If you're really getting good at something, you can survive. You will be able to get to a point where you can make it in life with it. Maybe you don't become a multimillionaire, but I promise you that's anyway not the goal.
Yeah.
You don't want to become that. Like, if you become that by accident or because you're really, really good at it and you suddenly end up being one, fair enough. But don't strive for that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Thrive for doing shit that you love, right? And then stuff fall in place as they're supposed to fall in place, or sometimes shit hits the fan and you try again. But
yeah,
like going through something and grind for it. Go, like, suffer for it. And become good at it, because then everything else becomes easier. The next thing becomes easier because you suddenly also have things to offer, right? You don't have to gamble anymore. You can actually do things, but it's instant gratification. Oh, I did this, check. Bucket list.
Yeah.
Bucket list travelers, worst type of travelers. Just bucket list. I want to see the Niagara Falls. I want to see the fucking Iguazu Falls. I want to see the Himalayas. Check. I want to see Peru, Machu Picchu. Check. I want to see, and all they do is run. They see the exact same pictures they have seen on Google search before.
Yeah.
Just because they work exactly to that checklist, they want to see that exact picture that they have seen in Google.
And there's no story behind that either.
And there's zero story behind it, because all it is, I checked off a bucket list.
Yeah.
That's your story? Fucking amazing. Awesome. You wrote a checklist. Like, and of course, but you know, I met a cool Polish traveler many years back in Patagonia. We traveled like this, right? We most people freak out. We slept in the same gas station. Like,
Classic.
one guy on this bench, the other guy on this bench, and we had a chat. We were sitting there drinking like hot chocolate or something and having a hot dog in Patagonia, in a somewhere by it must have been some Elbow Sun or so. And this guy went on a travel. He had a cool story. His friends, while he was studying, when they always made a trip somewhere, a holiday trip or traveling, they would pick up a stone somewhere in some foreign country, save the geolocation of that stone, and then bring it back and write that geolocation on that stone and give that stone to him. They collected a whole bag of fucking stones over the years.
Yeah.
And they set the challenge, well, we brought you the stones, you return them to where they come from.
Oh gosh.
Right?
But what a story! Like what an adventure to go on.
Fucking awesome, right?
Yeah.
So that was his fucking thing. He would go around and bring these stones back to where they came from, right? And some places were like asshole removed, like remote. Like some of his friends like hiked for days into the mountains just to pick a stone, and then it's like you bring that back to that geolocation.
And
right?
those are the kind of friends you want.
That's the friends you
number
want.
2, that's fantastic.
And then,
I love it.
So he did that, and what did he do on the same time? He was like, "Fuck you guys." So you can imagine. He was like, "Where could I go?" And bring a stone back for these fuckers to force them to go there.
Yeah.
Right? So he brought stones back from his journey or sent them back home to people. Like, hey, I sent you a stone. You have to bring it back to that location. And sometimes places that were not touristic at all, where people really had to become uncomfortable to get there to bring that stone back.
That's fantastic. I love that.
It's freaking cool.
I think I might start doing that with one of my friends. I'll edit that out of the interview so it doesn't go on the channel so I can't find out about it. But the moon is coming up. It's probably, like 10:30?
We should quit it.
But fantastic. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for reminding me of it. I was too sick to remember to do this.
If you are still here at the end of this monstrously long video and you enjoyed it, please make sure you like and subscribe, and then also comment down below saying that you watched the whole video, and we will be sure to send you a full personalized message from the creators of this channel. Thank you very much for watching.